Welcome, everyone, to Our Power's second gubernatorial power lunch. We're privileged to be joined today by Troy Jackson, former Maine Senate president and fifth generation logger from Allagash. Before we get into it with Troy, just a reminder that my name is Seth Berry. I am lucky to be the executive director of Our Power. We've been around since 2020, advocating for lower electricity costs, better reliability, and more local control. You can learn more about us at ourpowermaine.org. And we are hosting each of the candidates who responded to our survey. I'll talk more about the survey soon, later towards the end of this meeting. But each of the candidates who responded was invited to a power lunch. Not all of them took us up on the invitation. An hour is a lot to ask, but we're very fortunate that so many did. And Troy is one of them. I served with Troy back in my very first years in the legislature. We always had a lot of fun together, and we have both served on the legislature's Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee. Troy went on to become Maine State Senate president for multiple terms, but he comes from that Northern Maine, Allagash, fifth generation logging background, and he always remembers where he came from. I appreciate that about you, Troy. Today we're going to hear from Troy about his energy agenda. You're going to have a chance to ask your questions. You can either use the Q&A function, which is down at the bottom. You might need to click on more to find Q&A, but there is a Q&A there, I promise. And you can type your question for Troy into the chat at any time as well, if you prefer that to the Q&A. Either one works. I'm going to get through as many of your questions as possible. Once Troy is done speaking, I'll just pose them to him, and we'll go from there. If you really want to to ask your question in person, I will allow some of that. I'm just going to ask you to be very brief in your question, and I can let you answer your question live. There's a way to raise your hand to do that. And we'll get to all of that Q&A later. But now's our chance to just hear from Troy about his vision for energy in Maine, his plans, his principles, his priorities, and I think that takes care of all of the preliminaries. So Troy, welcome, and thank you so much for taking us up on the invitation, and the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, thanks, Seth. I really appreciate it. And everyone else, I really appreciate the opportunity. Seth didn't mention, too, that we were both majority leaders at the same time. He was in the House and I was in the Senate during a crazy time with Paul LePage. So that's another thing that we have in common. But, my energy thoughts and policy, I don't know that I've, sat down and put a straightforward conversation about that. But earlier last summer, when CMP was asking for another rate increase, we had put out a plan at that time. It had parts in there about data centers and AI, about making sure that if we were going to allow data centers into Maine, that at minimum we had to have them come with their own power source because of how they increased rates all across the United States for people. At that time, I hadn't even considered, the water issues. I hadn't considered what data. We don't have any real guardrails. And matter of fact, I just came from a press conference where, I released my plan for AI and data centers. But during that same discussion, I talked about how CMP and to a lesser extent Versant can't be taking $200 million a year out of ratepayers and going to Wall Street. That's a ridiculous rate on return. I think that the state has to step in and force utilities to become a partner with them so that we can lower rates and we can have more regulation or more ability to make sure that they're not just driving rates and trying to get more money into shareholders' pockets. And that's something that I feel very strongly about. Regardless if we end up in a situation where we want to take it over or we want to be a part owner, I think that the state has to become much more involved with our utilities. And a lot of, I do believe in getting off of fossil fuels. I think that Like right now is a perfect example with this war in Iran, what we're seeing across, the state of Maine, across the country. This is what we've been dealing with in our utilities, this boom and bust of natural gas, fossil fuels. Every time there's a conflict or even a perceived conflict, they're able to charge more because they think that they think they can, and that's been something that has held the state back. And I do think creating our opportunities here with solar and offshore wind is really important. I've fought for offshore wind. I took a different approach than the current administration. I thought that it was very important that we still protected our fishing industry because it's still a big part of our economy. I think a lot of people wanted to put offshore wind 25 miles out, which would have been right in the middle of LMA1. And so when I brought the fishing industry in, we found out that 40 miles was the limit that they could fish. Obviously I don't come from a fishing industry or background. And so in the end, what we did was we put together a plan with the environmental community, with the labor community, with the fishing community, that we would try and stay 40 miles out outside of the fishing industry, but the state would pick up the extra cost of the line from 25 to 40 miles. The administration and other people thought that it was a wasted effort because BOEM decides that it's not decides the leases, but we brought BOEM in too and showed them what we were doing. And I knew they were interested in it. So when we passed the law, BOEM come out with their leases. Every one of them was outside the 40-mile fishing zone, which for me was something I was very proud of. And while Donald Trump has ruined offshore wind now, he will go away soon, hopefully very soon. And when he does, the roadmap for offshore wind is there. And that's something that I think is what we have to do from now on is bring everybody to the table so that we can get real solutions that doesn't drive, pit, working class people against renewable energy. It's something that the Republicans have latched on to, making it seem like this is the reason why rates are so high. And the only way you combat that is bring everybody to the table so everyone's hearing the same information and no one feels like they're being left out of the discussion. The other thing that I am extremely high on as far as for energy here in Maine and something that I do think can transform the state, and Seth worked with me a lot on this whenever he was chairing the Utilities Committee, is I think the Northern Maine transmission line can be a game changer for us. Yes, I am from Aroostook County, and so I understand what this might possibly do for the area that I came from. But I really do think that this is something for the state that will be incredible. Building the line is obviously a lot of money. It's projected $1.8 billion. If you think about that, that's exactly the amount of money that Donald Trump just got for his J6 slush fund, $1.8 billion. So it's not out it's not out of the realm at all to build something like this. The opportunity that it costs that it creates for work across Maine, but there's so much availability of wind in Aroostook County, and it's a lot easier to site it there. It's a lot easier to get people to believe in it there. Um, and I see this as the way that we change the state. I see this the way that we lower our energy costs. I see this as a way that we put money into other programs because every other state in New England has got energy goals, climate goals, and I believe that they're going to have to come to Maine for that. Now we can, give our wind away, we can give our power away to them, or we can charge them. And I really think that the key here is that we need to build that line and charge them for the power that we do have in Maine and transform our economy. I mean, lower our energy rates, but also have extra money, to put into other programs that, I think is important. This is really doable, and I think it's something that we can set ourselves up for generations here. I'm not interested. I'm not so much interested in partnering with other states. I mean, that's I'm I certainly don't want to upset other states, but at the same time, this is our chance to really change the state of Maine in a way that I don't think anyone really has ever had the opportunity to see. We can be like a real Saudi Arabia of wind here, and they're going to buy it. I mean, they have to. They have no other option. So that's kind of, I mean, my overall mindset in this. One, we have to get on top of the utilities. I mean, they're not playing fair. We don't have a good grid because of they're not being willing to upgrade. And two, we need to get off fossil fuels, and we can do that right here in Maine in a way that's actually going to lower our costs and make the state much more profitable for the people in it. So I guess I'll stop there and take any questions. It's as honest and sincere as I can be about, and more than anything, I look forward to the questions to try and continue the discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Troy. And let's see, we do have a number of questions coming in. I encourage everyone to keep them coming, and we will get to as many as possible. I'll probably kind of cycle through. So if I'm going to start with Becky, and Becky, I might not get to your second question until I get to some of the others that are coming. But let's go ahead and start with Becky Bardovics. Her question is about offshore wind, and then it says that the negotiations about offshore wind left out the indigenous communities, Maine's tribes, and how will you deal with that if governor?
Mhm. Yeah, great question, Becky. Good to hear from you too. I agree that they um, left them out. Of the port discussion. And so I've already, reached out to all the tribes, said that, we would make sure that anything that goes forward in that regard, they're going to be involved in. And in fact, CMP actually got the grant, got a grant for a transmission line. They haven't gotten the RFP for the transmission line, but because they did get the grant, that seemed to put them in a good position. They asked me if I could set up a meeting with the tribes just to get the conversation started. We did. I brought all the tribes to Bangor and met with CMP about this. I mean, absolutely no promises by the tribes, no anything, but it was like, they understood that there was no way that they were ever going to be able to do anything if they didn't have tribal support. And they asked me to broker that deal, discussion with them. And I know the tribes, know that, um, I've been in their corner. We're trying to do tribal sovereignty. I've committed to them day one. They're going to be a valued part of my administration.
Great. And just a reminder, if you do want to ask your question live to Troy, I can bring you on just at least your voice for just a moment to pose your question. So it's not just me droning on. And feel free to raise your hand. I'm going to go to David Gibson, who has done so. David. Oh, sorry, David. Give me 1 minute. I goofed up.
You're doing better than me, Seth.
Why am I not seeing it here? Oh, there it is. Okay, David, now you should be able to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Troy. I'm the Director of Energy at College of the Atlantic and have been working on community-based energy efficiency programs in several rural communities, in addition to our efforts to transition our campus off of fossil fuels. So driving around Maine this winter, more than half the homes I saw had ice dams and many small businesses too. This means that heat is leaking through the attic to melt the snow off the roof, which refreezes when it gets over the eaves, often causing damage in addition to costing thousands in wasted heat. The Weatherization Assistance Program and Efficiency Maine programs combined have insulated fewer than 4,000 homes per year meaning it will take more than 100 years to seal and insulate all the homes and small businesses in Maine that need it. What will you do to accelerate insulation efforts? And as governor, would you consider training and mobilizing the National Guard to insulate low-income homes, treating that as the emergency that it is for lower-income families?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I was gonna say as you were talking, because like I used to be on the ACAP board in Northern Maine, Mercer County Action Program, and we participated in that program to help people get insulated or getting roofs fixed and things like that. Because I mean, I don't know how many times I've been in a house that exactly like what you said. You're chopping ice off the eaves, and and it is a problem. But I'll tell you, funding was always a challenge. But what also was a challenge, and I think you brought that up with the second part of your question, was finding contractors to do the work. And so, I mean, I think, the state has not been willing to lean into apprenticeship programs through carpenters and things like that, where I'm very supportive of. I think we do have to get more people doing that in the workforce and try and help with that, help with more money going into the program. I honestly I don't know about the National Guard. I'm not saying that I wouldn't consider that, but most National Guard members, I mean, one of them's on my staff. Have other jobs, and that may be a very challenging thing to pull people away from what their normal job is to get into something like that. Maybe there is a program where we could do that, and they could do it on the weekends as part of their training. I honestly I haven't really considered that. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I hadn't really considered that. But I do know that we have to get more people into this program doing the actual jobs, because like I said, as a realistic thing on that cap board, we couldn't find contractors to do a lot of these roofing installation programs, windows. They just weren't interested in doing it. So and I think a lot of that too is because we don't pay enough for that. But I think we can put more money into it, increase the rates to some extent, and then obviously train more people to actually go into this field.
Great. Thank you, David, for that question.
It is an
And
important one.
next
He's
up,
absolutely
we
right.
have Andrew Price, who is the CEO, I think, David, correct me if I'm wrong, of Competitive Energy Services. Andrew.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, great. Hi, Tori. Yeah, Andrew Price, Competitive Energy. Thanks for being here today. I had been planning to ask you about Northern Maine wind, and you've largely already answered my question in your introductory remarks. But as you probably know, there's an RFP process currently underway, and many other New England states are participating in that on an equal footing with Maine. And I appreciated your comments about maximizing the benefits to Maine of that wind project and subsequent transmission line. I was curious if you could elaborate a little bit on how you think about going about that, and maybe in the context of this current PUC RFP process that's already underway. And I believe bids maybe are due back middle of this month, so
Mhm.
coming right up here.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. And you're 100% right. And I had planned on being at the Samoset when they had that conference a couple weeks ago to talk about that, or at least push. And I think there's a whole bunch of people right now in Maine that thinks that the PUC is doing this absolutely wrong. I mean, actually, I think, well, they've already had this RFP out once, and the person that got it, can't think of their name right now, but obviously had to come back and say that they couldn't do it for that money. I think this will be the second or third time that they've put the RFP out again. I think, to a large extent that they've mishandled this. And I think their belief is that they want other states to be a partner so that they can share a big part of the cost of building the line. And I can understand that. I can understand the theory there. But I think if, we're not willing to build this on our own, then we really lose the opportunity to set the state of Maine up, like I said, for generations. It may, well, it's $1.8 billion. I mean, um, I would rather go out and try and convince people that it's better for the state of Maine to take this all on ourselves, to build that line so that we own all that power, and then go come into a contract with Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island to build it. There's no way that they're not going to buy the power, and obviously we can sell it to them at a fair price and everything. But if we give up the opportunity to own this all on ourselves, everything changes, and all that what will be the cheapest power, we lose control of, and that's something I don't think is smart, and I think the PUC is being short-sighted about worrying about short-term costs, but for long-term gain, it's the right thing to do, and I think anyone that understands economics can look at this and understand that it would be better for Maine to take the risk up front for what we will gain in the back end, and I just feel strongly about this. So that's I think the PUC is making the wrong, and when the administration changes, whoever it is, I think that I mean even before that, I mean there's people that are pushing right now for them to change, but I mean I think the next governor has to lead on this, that this is Maine power and it should be for the benefit of Mainers.
Great. And we're going to come back to the PUC. There are some questions about the PUC, as you might guess. But first, I want to go to, well, this might be PUC related. Kelsey Flores has a question, and I'll let her introduce herself and state her question for you, Troy.
All
Kelsey,
right,
we can
can you
hear you.
hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, it's related to the PUC. First of all, thank you, Troy, for being here today. My name is Kelsey Flores, and I am the Wabanaki Sustainable Energy Coordinator. I've had the privilege of working with 4 of the tribal governments in the state of Maine. And my question is really related towards the efforts that the Wabanaki nations have done to reach energy sovereignty. So, would you support legislative or regulatory reforms limiting the red tape that the PUCs have on tribal nations interested in formulating their own tribal-owned utility company?
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes, Kelsey. I mean, I maybe haven't heard as much on this issue from the tribal leaders, but I mean, the fact that I want to give full tribal sovereignty means that they would have decisions on things like that on obviously tribal land. So yeah, I would say yeah. I'm not in favor of red tape. I'm actually not in favor of a lot right now that's going on there, but I wouldn't stand in the way of tribes trying to do what they can to um, create their own energy destiny.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a great question, and just a little more color there. We do have a law on the books that allows for a tribal utility to be formed, but the PUC has to decide that it's in the best interest of everyone. And so that includes, the big
Hmm.
utilities who would doubtless
Sure.
oppose the PUC
That's
proceedings. So
not,
that's kind of
not in
the
their best
problem in a
interest.
nutshell. I'm going to go back to the PUC actually and ask Bill Dunn to state his question by way of introduction. And full disclosure, Bill is a member of the Our Power Board. Bill also has a career of consulting internationally in dozens and dozens of countries with utilities and regulators. And so that's where he's coming from with this question. Bill, take it away. Oh, Bill, I think you're muted.
Okay. How about now?
We
Yeah.
got you.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, Troy. And
Yep.
I want to ask you the same question I asked Hannah. The PUC has totally failed Maine ratepayers. Year after year, Maine continues to have the worst or near worst reliability in the whole country and the worst customer satisfaction. What would you do to force the PUC to do their job, or redefine their job and serve Maine ratepayers and not the foreign owners of CMP and Versant.
Mhm. Well, I don't disagree with you, Bill. And first and foremost, I mean, I think as we're putting forward people to replace members, I would make damn sure that the people that I nominate have that mindset. Is that you're there for making sure ratepayers are protected and have good um, services and have as cheap an energy as they can. So that would be probably first and foremost. But as far as redefining, I think I'd want to make sure I brought people in that understood the industry even better than I do. Maybe like yourself, where you have, and this is not blowing smoke or anything. I mean, my whole campaign is about not having a top-down approach. That I have strengths, but I also have areas that I've been weaker in, and I've leaned on other people to form better opinions. And so I'm not afraid to bring people in and ask for help in this regard. I'm not happy with the PUC as it is right now. They know that. I was the only one running for governor that actually went and spoke at the CMP rate increase in Freeport. Um, it's very clear that, that was a non-starter and that they shouldn't. But I think in the end, Bill, finding the right people for the PUC, maybe even changing the makeup of the PUC is going to be important for me. But the other thing is about having good people that understand the industry even better than I do, and taking their advice and maybe like you said, reforming the PUC. To look like that is going to be key for me.
The really sad thing about this is back in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s, when I was involved with operations in New England and chaired the operations committee, CMP and Bangor Hydro at that time, now part of Versant, had a great reputation. And
No, they don't.
unfortunately, they don't have that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, just to expand on that further, the state has, and this is like the kind of the model that I've been thinking, and maybe this won't work, and maybe it's a variation, but the state has employer healthcare board, to decide on issues for the state retiree, as the state workers' healthcare and benefits. It's a um, board that's evenly stacked. And I don't know. I mean, I'd like to at least see if that'd be something. Now I know CMP Inversion's not going to want to do that, but I don't care. I'd like to see something possibly like that. That we're bringing them in as a state and talking about these issues and making those decisions, and if we have to, forcing those decisions. Um, I think that the state can partner with these utilities on a lot of this issue that will lower their costs, but that's because I want them to be able to be putting those savings into reducing rates for ratepayers. It's something I keep thinking about. I mean, until I find out where I'm headed on Tuesday, we probably haven't really got a chance to flesh it all out. But if I'm governor, I have to figure out a way to interject the state into these decisions that aren't happening right now, other than the legislature, which is too slow and unwieldy in a lot of cases.
It can be slow and unwieldy. I've lived that. Up next, we have a question from Peter Fitzgerald. Peter is a utility engineer and runs Alt Engineering. He's been before the UT committee a lot, before the Public Utilities Commission. And Peter has a question about a bill that came forward a couple of years ago. Our Power was very involved in it, it didn't just protect whistleblowers, it actually compensated them. And this is based on a successful model that the Securities and Exchange Commission has used. It actually compensates people to come forward and save money for investors. We think that ratepayers, if a whistleblower from the utility
Yeah,
can save money for invest for ratepayers by coming forward and reporting waste or fraud or abuse on the part of the utility, that they should be compensated because they take a big risk. So
sure.
Peter, I've said I might have stolen your thunder, but go ahead and add anything you want to. And thanks for bringing this up.
Thank you, Ella. Um, Always happy to have your explanation of it. But yeah, so I've I've about 15 years of experience in electrical engineering, and most of the engineering companies I've worked with before, just the fact of doing engineering is the utilities are one of your major clients. Um, so there's a real conflict there
Hmm.
for obviously people who work at the utility, but then people who don't work at the utility who work anywhere. Um, when I was working for another company, um, I was actually blackmailed by CMP, and that's kind of led to where I am now of, okay, I'll have my own company and then absorb the blows, I guess.
Hmm.
But would you
Yeah.
support those additional protections
Yeah.
and compensation?
So uh, I mean, I guess I'd be curious where that bill went with Seth's guidance. I don't really remember it, but
It passed
um,
in the Senate and it failed in the House by 3 or 4 votes, I think.
okay. And I would imagine I'm having a hard time. I would imagine I supported it.
I think you did vote for it,
Yeah,
Troy.
yeah. The reason why I say that is because, like, I'm a huge labor person. I'm in 5 labor unions. I've been endorsed by every labor organization in Maine. So this idea of whistleblower protection, I'm always in support of. I don't think I've ever heard of uh, getting compensated. But I can understand that too, because as much as there may be protections for whistleblowers, you usually lose economically somewhere along the line, if not immediately somewhere down the road. So I can see that being another deterrent for people to do the blackballing, blackmailing, whatever. So I actually do like that idea. Um, and I know that I'd be very, very supportive well, I say I know, I mean, I got to think I passed I voted for that bill. So I 100% agree with that. I've seen retaliation. I know it very well personally, and there's nothing that pisses me off more than that. People with power and influence making other people feel like they can't do their job right. They can't talk about issues that are important without repercussions. And so yeah, I would definitely support that.
Great, and I need to correct myself. Thank you, Senator Grahowski. It was just after your time, I guess, that this came up.
Oh.
But I believe you did respond that you would support it. I think it's important to note that only the way the SEC legislation works, and this is part of Dodd-Frank to protect investors
Mhm.
after the 2010 crash, if their report leads to savings, then they're eligible for a portion of those savings as a compensation for putting their career at risk
Yeah.
and being blackballed, which does happen
Yeah.
to
Oh
whistleblowers.
God,
So
yes. Well, thank you,
that
Senator
bill may
Grahowski,
come up
for
again, and maybe you'll be governor to help
yeah,
decide what to do with it.
sure.
All right,
Well,
I want
thank
to
you,
go
Senator
to
Grahowski.
some of these other great questions. So many in the chat. Matt Kennedy asks about transportation as a greenhouse gas emitter, highest emitting sector in Maine. About half of our total greenhouse gas emissions come from transportation. What is your plan to mitigate this?
Well, my plan is to try and keep incentivizing people to, buy uh, electric vehicles. Yeah, I'll be very blunt. I'm not going to mandate that for people. I think that's another problem where we actually drive people away from doing the right thing. I am very impressed with electric vehicles now, compared to 20 years ago when I started. And I think incentivizing people to continue to do, electric vehicles, heat pumps, I am all for and am going to advocate for big time. I do get very concerned when we start talking, and I don't know if this is Matt's mind, belief or whatever. I'm not saying that, but there has been attempts in the past to, mandate electric clean cars, and I don't think we're there yet. I mean, my argument, not, personally, but well, I guess it was personal. I mean, to get into an electric vehicle in Augusta and to drive to Aroostook County, where I live, I don't know that there was a vehicle that actually had that range. And if it was, I knew for a fact I couldn't afford it. Um, and I understand how important an issue this is, but I think people have to understand that there's a lot of people in Maine that need help purchasing vehicles like that, and they don't work for every application across Maine. They're going to. They're eventually going to get there, and we're going to have the infrastructure to charge vehicles across Maine, but I don't. We're not there yet, and until we get there, I think the biggest thing we can do is continue to incentivize them, so that more and more people see the benefits and move towards that. I think that's going to get us where we need to be. Lost you, Seth. I don't know, Seth. I can't hear you.
Seth just unmuted me. Do you hear me, Troy?
Hey, Yvonne, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
You're on mute, Seth.
Thank you. I am going to mute myself now.
Okay.
Right on. So, Troy, obviously the polarization between the parties just continues to amp up in just about every conversation related to politics and what impacts us as citizens. And this has definitely, impacted energy policy dating back to the first LePage administration in terms of, how that partisanship has increased on energy policy and how it empowers investor-owned utilities. What do you see as the role of the governor in addressing this increased polarization generally, and then specifically as it relates to energy policy?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right, Ron. I mean, I think there's increased partisanship on everything. And I, honestly, I can't say that I haven't never participated in that. But in this realm, I mean, obviously you're talking about major forces that have a lot to lose, and they don't want to lose, and they're well funded. They have all kinds of different ways to push their agenda. I mean, obviously lobbyists, but social media, dark money. I mean, Koch brothers are spending money in this governor's race right now. I'm not sure exactly what the intent is, but I have some thoughts. But the point of the matter is that again, that's going to continue to happen. I mean, people with money and influence are always going to try and pressure, states to go their way. But I do think that in terms of legislators and in terms of the public, we have to have more discussion, open discussion about these issues again, so that at least people feel like they're being part of the process. And I do feel like we have to understand everyone's point of view on this. Again, getting back to the clean car issue. I mean, I think a lot of people were really freaked out about that. I think with offshore wind, there was a lot of people that were freaked out about that, and because we weren't as transparent, and I'm not talking about anyone on this call or anything, but because there wasn't as much transparency, people started assuming things, and then other people took the opportunity to really foster that divisiveness and drive a wedge. Um, and it seeped into people's mind that this is the reason why we can't have clean energy in Maine because it's too damn expensive. That's not the truth, but that's what they used, and I just feel like as governor, I'm going to want to make sure that we have these conversations. We don't leave people out. We already talked earlier about the tribes, how they were left out. We can't do that, or that's gonna set us up for people that don't want this, don't see this as good for their bottom line. That's going to give them a way to creep into people's minds and ruin opportunities like what we have. And so, again, as governor, I'm going to want everyone. I mean, yeah, when I first started in politics, even before I got elected, it was about the logging issues in northern Maine. And I didn't want to talk to a landowner to save my soul back then. I was so angry. I was so unwilling. I didn't believe anything that they said. And one of the guys that was with me, that was older gentleman, he told me, he said, look, he said, Troy, you got to talk to these people. You have to have these discussions. He said, you may not agree with them, but at least you can understand where they're coming from and make the opportunity to change people's perceptions. And that really stuck with me, even back when I was 29 years old, that, being a listener is a lot better than being a talker. And that's how, I'm going to approach this, is bring everybody in so everyone hears the same thing. There may be people that don't agree, but they won't feel like they've been left out of the process.
You're muted again, Seth. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you, Vaughn.
All right, I'm the person who can talk now, right? Is that how this works?
Sorry, I keep muting myself. Ezra from Maine Climate Action Now, you're on.
All right, yeah, thank you so much for meeting with us today, Troy. I really appreciate it. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how your ability to shape Maine's energy future will change. You were a legislator. If you become governor, are there additional powers that you're excited to use as governor? And are there any limitations you're worried about if you're not as closely working with the legislature anymore? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's obviously different. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I think that's the opportunity, is that, we can have um, a different discussion, a different way of going forward, because, I am a creature of the legislature, and I feel very strongly about that. And I don't know that, in my time, that we've had governors that actually did care so much about that. It's very much a top-down approach, very much like my way or the highway. So, I mean, I'm only a year and a half out of the legislature. I mean, I still know a lot of people that are serving. I mean, still count a lot of people there as friends and colleagues. And so I'm hoping to use that in a way to actually have, the same discussions we had as me being a state senator. I mean, sometimes we had tough ones. I mean, sometimes people didn't like what I had to say, but oftentimes we came together to do some really great things. And I'm excited by that. I mean, I think making sure that, and again, like, I don't like to interject myself into conversations needlessly, but if people are working on an issue and I do have concerns about it as a governor, I'd rather get involved early on to try and make those concerns known so that we can work on together as a legislature. And in my world, at least the way I saw things, that wasn't happening. I mean, the bill would go forward. The administration might have testified against it or something like that, but there was really no conversations about improving it until we were at the end. And that's why a lot of things got vetoed. And I do think what you just saw with data centers is a perfect example. I mean, it was towards the end, well, at least in my opinion, So I think again, I want to work with the legislature. I've had more bills vetoed than anyone in the state of Maine, and I don't want to be somebody that's doing that to the legislature. I would be hard pressed to know a time that I would veto a bill. But I mean, I think getting involved as early as possible with how I see the best opportunity for the state is important so that the legislature can incorporate that or, pose other suggestions or other ways around it. I mean, again, all these issues, I don't feel like I'm the expert on a lot of them. That's not my mindset. I'm trying to understand many of these things by the people that are the experts, and that's why I'd like to be involved earlier so that we can make sure that we put legislation forward that I'm happy to sign.
Great. Up next, we have Eliza Donahue, who Troy knows and others probably do as well, as the director of the Maine Renewable Energy Association. Eliza, you're on.
Thanks, Seth, and thanks so much, Troy. I really appreciate you taking the time today. Troy, as you know, the last legislature really passed along a lot of responsibility to the new Department of Energy Resources. And I'd love to hear from you what you will be looking for when you're thinking about who will lead that department in the next administration.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you right now, and I'm not disparaging anyone, but I don't want a yes person. I want the most competent people that understand energy and have more of a understanding of renewable energy, because that's the way I want to go. But I mean, more than anything, I want people that really are experts in the field, are not afraid to speak their mind. I mean, they shouldn't be afraid to bring out issues that they believe are important to making the state operate better. And I just feel that everyone, be it a position like this or a commissioner, I want, strong people that understand these issues and aren't afraid to challenge me when I'm wrong. And I also want people that understand that, we're going to go around the state of Maine probably twice a month and hold, forums about these issues. And so they'll have to be willing to spend extra time on the weekends because I want people across, when we went through COVID and created, Zoom option for, people to testify. When we came through that, a lot of people wanted to get rid of Zoom option. They wanted to go back to the old way. I didn't want that because, obviously people in my district and working class people don't have the opportunity to be at the legislature like a lot of people. It hasn't worked as well as I thought. I mean, it works fine, but I don't think as many people take advantage of it. So my hope is that bringing forums across the state just to hear from people about any issue and give information back to them. It's important because it's hard to get people to come to state government, but I think it's easy for us to bring state government to them. But anyways, the hope is to have the best people that we can get that again are smart and not afraid to challenge the status quo.
Okay, so Troy, this has been great. I think as we near the top of the hour, what I want to do is, if you're okay with this, kind of a lightning round. We'll just do it. I'm going to pepper you with short answer questions, maybe yes, no, even if possible, and then we'll get to as many of those as we can. I'll send you any others that we don't have time for your team, and I want to give you a chance to kind of wrap it up. Any final thoughts, and then I'll have some things that'll take us to the top of the hour. So there's a question from Becky about reconfiguring transmission lines or more fully utilizing existing transmission lines prior to building new transmission. It's been talked about a lot in the industry. as being an opportunity to reduce costs and increase the efficiency and utilization of the grid. Yes or no? Do you support that?
I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't support that. I mean, when I was talking and just when I was talking about Aroostook, I mean, I don't know if people know, but we're not connected on Tyson, New England, so that's why that's important to me. But yeah, I don't see any reason to open up new transmission lines when we have existing paths to go on.
Great. And then relatedly, Becky asks about building renewable energy infrastructure on previously developed land, brownfields, et cetera, as a priority before building on forest, wetlands, farmland.
Agreed, 100%.
Great. David asks about Maine PERS, Maine Public Employee Retirement System. $1.2 billion, more than that, invested in fossil fuels, largely through unaccountable private equity funds, David says. Will you push them to follow the law, LD 9099, passed in 2021 when you were Maine State Senate President, I believe, and fully divest from fossil fuels, maybe even reinvesting them in efficiency and clean energy projects in Maine?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. The law is the law, and we've certainly tried in the past too with different states, different countries, trying to divest from them. So I believe strongly in that also.
Great. Um, I Kat, I will send your observation to Troy's team. I'm not sure where the question is there. I apologize. Matt asks about any lessons from the last attempt to build the transmission line to northern Maine. It didn't play out. Were there any lessons there
Yep.
as we go forward?
Mhm. Well,
Briefly,
I mean,
please.
obviously, yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, them not having the line, was a huge concern, and I think, not having the jurisdiction for the line, and then people got really freaked out about what it was going to mean for them. So trying to follow existing lines or right of ways would be great, to get that built or anywhere to get that built. But I think in the end, regardless of what plan, I think people in those areas have to know that, government's not going to just come in and take their land up, to put in a transmission line. And that obviously is very concerning. I mean, if that was my backyard, I'd feel the same damn way.
Great. All right, Troy. Final thoughts for us. I want to give you 2, 3 minutes to just kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
Any things that you want to leave us with as the primary election approaches next Tuesday? A reminder as you're thinking about what you want to say, just a reminder to everyone, if you are not enrolled in a political party, you can vote in a party primary. You can vote, you can rank Troy among your choices in the Democratic primary. And if you want to vote in the Republican primary, you can do that too. You got to choose one or the other. But unenrolled can vote in this party primary, semi-open party primary on Tuesday, and it is ranked choice. So you got to think about all of these candidates and how you want to rank them: 1, 2, 3, 4. And I do encourage you to rank people and not just choose one. So Troy, with that, thank you again for joining us, and any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
Well, I mean, I appreciate it. I do. It's a good, hour goes by pretty quick when you start having, this back and forth, give and take, and I always enjoy that. Again, I think, my story is that, when I started in the legislature, this wasn't an issue that I knew anything about at all. Even the diversity transmission line, I mean, that had been talked about my entire life ahead of that, and people said it could never be done. Now we're literally in a position where it could be done, and it could change, the entire state of Maine for like generations to come. I guess my point is that I've never considered myself the smartest person in the room, the person that had all the ideas. My job, my process was always to be a collaborator, chime in whenever I 100% knew I was spot on an issue. I'm happy to lead, but I'm also happy to have other people lead that understand the issue better. And that's really how I'm going to approach this as governor. I mean, I know I can lead. I know I can do this. I actually think I have the most experience to do this, but at the same time, I'm very happy to bring people around. I don't need the acclaim. I don't need, to be, hey, look what I did. What I feel is like we're not having enough everyday people get a shot in their government. I think that's what's been missing for a long time. And that's what I want to provide here. I think in this race, I mean, the polling's coming down to a couple of us that probably could win. One of them's going after me today with an attack ad. Uh, I'm concerned about other people. I mean, I'll be blunt. I don't want a third term of Janet Mills. I just, I disagree. So, but there's good people in this race, and I certainly would love to have your first place vote. If not, I'd love to have your second place vote, and I can promise you that when I'm governor, our power will be at the table, every day with us because I believe in what you're trying to do. Haven't always maybe done everything that you wanted, but I know that you're a valued resource and I'm not just blowing smoke. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Troy. We appreciate you for joining us. And we are going to be joined tomorrow, everybody, by Shanna Bellows at noon, and then by Nirav Shah just for 30 minutes at 1. So if you're not already registered for those, you can register. Look for an email from me or reach out to me at seth@ourpowermaine.org. The other important resource I want to share with you, and I just put it in the chat. If you go to ourpowermaine.org, you'll find right there, front and center, the candidates' responses to our survey. And it asks about data centers. It asks about campaign finance. Some of the topics we weren't able to touch on today, really important if you're sifting through energy priorities, that you go to that ourpowermaine.org right there on the home page. And make sure when you do, that you look at all the tabs. It's a spreadsheet and it has a number of tabs. So click through the bottom. Each of the tabs is a different topic. There's some kind of long answer topics and also some just yes, no questions as well. So, and please enjoy that resource. And I hope it's helpful to you and I hope these forums are as well as you think about not only how you're going to rank your vote on Tuesday, but also how you might advise your friends and neighbors. Because I know a lot of people still haven't made up their mind and it's getting close. So um, here we are on the Wednesday before the Tuesday of the primary. And by the way, that reminds me that the night of the primary election, that Tuesday night, the Public Utilities Commission is holding a public witness hearing on CMP's latest request to raise our rates. So please come to that. Plan to be there at 4 o'clock. The hearing is at 5, but plan to be there at 4 o'clock. Join us at the South Portland Community Center at 4 o'clock to protest CMP's rate hike. We will be there with signs, with some creative costumes. You don't want to miss that. And then you can speak to the PUC afterwards, which Troy did last fall. And Our Power and the whole Fight the Hike Coalition, 14 organizations in total now, were able to build a grassroots resistance, and the PUC did for the first time in Maine history say no, just a flat no to a CMP rate hike. So that was a pretty big moment. I appreciated Troy being there and speaking out against that rate hike as well himself and bringing his people as well. So Troy, I hope you'll join us next Tuesday night in South Portland, and
Good to know.
we'll put the band back together.
Sounds good.
Thanks
Seth.
a lot, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.